Time changes everything. 8 years ago, Assassin's Creed was at a crossroads. The franchise was growing stale. Its once revolutionary formula starting to feel predictable. Then came Origins, a game that shattered expectations, reinvented the series, and introduced players to one of the most breathtaking open worlds ever created. But here's the question, after all these years, does Assassin's Creed still hold up? Or has it been buried beneath the sands of time? With the rise of Odyssey and Valhalla, Origins is often seen as a stepping stone to something bigger, but was it actually the peak of the franchise's evolution? Today we're going back to where it all began, not just in the story, but in the reinvention of Assassin's Creed itself. Was Origins truly a masterpiece ahead of its time, or have the years exposed its flaws? Let's find out. This is Assassin's Creed Origins 8 years later, and don't forget to subscribe, like and comment on this video. A great open world isn't just about its size, it's about depth, immersion and the feeling that it's alive. When Assassin's Creed Origins launched in 2017, its recreation of ancient Egypt was hailed as one of the most ambitious and visually stunning game worlds ever created. From the vast deserts to towering pyramids, every inch of this world was designed with meticulous detail and historical accuracy. But the real question is, does it still hold up today? In this chapter we'll take a deep dive into the world of Assassin's Creed Origins. We'll explore its scale, its beauty, its historical authenticity, and most importantly, whether it still delivers that sense of wonder and immersion that made it so groundbreaking at launch. Let's step back into Bayek's world and see if ancient Egypt is still as magical as we remember. At its core, Origins was Ubisoft's boldest attempt at an open world game at the time. Before this, Assassin's Creed games were known for their tightly designed cityscapes, places like Renaissance Italy, Paris during the French Revolution, or Victorian London, but Origins took a different approach, embracing a vast, sprawling map with deserts, rivers and ancient temples. The first time players stepped in this world, it felt like anything what the series has never ever done before. Instead of narrow streets and rooftops, there was an endless horizon. Instead of a single metropolis, there were multiple thriving cities spread across Egypt. Ubisoft wasn't just designing an open world, they were recreating an entire civilization. But does this scale still impress in 2025? Surprisingly, yes. Even by today's standards, few open world games capture a historical setting with the level of depth, authenticity that Origins achieved. The world is massive, but it never feels empty. Every region has its own unique architecture, culture, and even wildlife. You can be in the bustling city of Alexandria one moment, then deep in the desert the next, watching mirages form in the scorching heat. The level of environmental storytelling is what makes Origins world so special. It doesn't just look realistic, it feels alive. The world reacts to Bayek's presence, and every location has its own stories to tell, whether through NPC interactions, hidden lore, or dynamic events. One of the most impressive aspects of Origins' world is its cities. Unlike dense urban environments of previous Assassin's Creed games, the cities in Origins are spread out, each offering a unique glimpse into different cultures of ancient Egypt. Now firstly, Alexandria, the jewel of Egypt. Alexandria is a vibrant, cosmopolitan city, blending Egyptian, Greek and Roman influences. The towering lighthouse of Alexandria dominates the skyline, and the Great Library is a testament to the city's status of a centre of knowledge. Walking through Alexandria, you feel the presence of history, merchants bargaining in the streets, scholars debating philosophy, and soldiers patrolling the grand avenues. Now beyond the cities, Egypt's wilderness is just as compelling. The game's world isn't just an empty space, it's filled with ruins, bandit camps, hidden tombs, and even dynamic weather events like a sandstorm that change the way you navigate through the landscape. One of the most breathtaking aspects of Origins is how it portrays the vast, unforgiving desert. Instead of feeling barren, the desert feels mysterious. It holds secrets, abandoned temples buried in the sand, forgotten tombs with treasure, and even supernatural phenomena that hint at Egypt's myths and legends. Wildlife also plays a crucial role in the making of the world feel alive. Crocodiles lurk in the Nile, lions prowl the savannah, and hippos charge at unsuspecting travelers. Hunting and taming animals can be a major gameplay mechanic, adding another layer of realism and survival to the experience. Now, one of Origin's biggest strengths is its commitment to historical accuracy. Ubisoft didn't just create a generic ancient Egypt, they created Egypt as it was during the rule of Cleopatra, a time of political upheaval and cultural blending. From architecture to clothing, from the hieroglyphics on the walls to the way people interacted, everything in the game was designed with historical research in mind. The Discovery Tour mode, which was later added as an educational tool, even turned the game into a virtual museum, allowing players to explore Egypt without combat, without guided historical tours, explaining the significance of each location. Even today, this attention to detail makes Origins one of the best historical games ever made. It's not just an open world, it's a time machine. So after 8 years, does Assassin's Creed Origins still have one of the most best open worlds in gaming? Yes, without a doubt. While newer games have more advanced graphics or larger maps, few have captured the essence of history the way Origins did. Its world remains breathtaking, immersive, and full of life. Even today, in 2025, stepping into this version of Egypt just feels as magical as it did in 2017. A great open world isn't just about its size, it's about its soul. And Assassin's Creed Origins still has that in abundance.
Perhaps we can outrun it! Face it. Ready yourself, Caesar. This is worse than any battle you'll yet have. It can't be that bad! It is Osiris himself! The others are only making him angrier! Hold the tower! The lighthouse approaches quickly! We'll run out of land soon! Throw harder! There! The fleet! I have nothing left to throw! Any time, Bayek!
For years, Assassin's Creed combat followed a simple yet effective formula: counter-attack, repeat. It was fluid, cinematic, and made players feel like a master assassin. But by the time of Assassin's Creed Syndicate roll around, the system felt predictable. Fights became effortless, and an endless loop of stylish executions where enemies politely waited for their turn to die. Ubisoft knew their franchise needed change. Assassin's Creed Origins marked the beginning of a bold new era, a full-fledged open-world RPG with a completely reworked combat system. Gone were the instant counters and one-shot kills. Instead, players faced a weighty, skill-based system inspired by action RPGs like Dark Souls and The Witcher. But here's the real question: did this change actually improve Assassin's Creed, or did it sacrifice the series in pursuit of something bigger? Today we're breaking down Assassin's Creed Origins combat. What did it right, where it stumbled, and whether it still holds up 8 years later. Was this evolution the franchise needed, or was it the first step into an identity crisis? One of the biggest shifts in AC Origins combat system was its move away from animation-based combat to hitbox-based combat. In old Assassin's Creed games, attacks played out through preset animations. Once you press the attack button, an animation will automatically come to the enemy. This made combat fluid and cinematic, but also meant that positioning and timing weren't as important. Origins changed that. Every attack was now based on hitboxes. meaning if your weapon didn't physically connect, it wouldn't deal damage. Enemies could dodge, block, and interrupt your attacks, forcing players to think more about spacing, timing, and positioning. This made fights feel less scripted and more dynamic. Players had to be proactive rather than reactive. Instead of waiting for an enemy to attack and counter it, you had to dodge, block, or parry in real time. This change was divisive. On one hand, it made combat more engaging and rewarding. On the other, it made fights harder, sometimes clunky, and less Assassin's Creed-like. Players who were used to fast, fluid combat of past games found a new system which was slower and more methodical. Was it a necessary change? Absolutely. But was it perfect? Not quite. One of the biggest improvements Origins brought to the combat was its weapon system. For the first time in the series, weapons weren't just cosmetic, they had different attack speeds, damage types, and special abilities. Instead of a single sword that functioned identically throughout the game, players now had an entire arsenal to choose from. Here's how the weapon types broken down. Swords and shields. Low balance, allowing for both offense and defense. Dual swords. Faster attacks but less defensive, encouraging aggressive playstyles. Heavy blades. Slow but powerful, capable of breaking enemies' guards. Spears. Long reach, great for crowd control and spacing. Bows. 4 different types, from rapid fire hunter bows to its precision predator bows for long range sniping. This variety was a huge step forward for the franchise. Players could tailor their combat style to their preferences, making each encounter feel fresh. However, the system wasn't without its flaws. Some weapons felt unbalanced. Certain heavy weapons were sluggish to the point of being impractical, while dual swords left players vulnerable without offering enough of an advantage. The weapon variety was ambitious and exciting, but it still had room for refinement. Now, one of the most common criticisms of Assassin's Creed games was the predictability of enemy AI. Guards took turns attacking, making fights feel more like choreographed dance than a real battle. Origins introduced a new AI system that aimed to fix this. Enemies no longer waited their turn to attack. Different enemy types had unique behaviours. Some use shields, others use heavy weapons, forcing players to adapt. Groups of enemies worked together, flanking Bayek and cutting off escape routes. At its best, this created intense dynamic fights, where players had to think on their feet, but at worst it led to frustrating moments of jank and inconsistency. Some enemies had unpredictable attack patterns that felt awkward rather than challenging. Hit detection issues sometimes made parrying unreliable. Some enemies relied too heavy in spamming shield blocks, leading to repetitive encounters. While the AI was smarter than before, it wasn't perfect. In some cases, it felt like the game relied on making enemies tanky rather than truly intelligent. Decline of stealth. For all improvements to open combat, stealth took a massive hit in Origins. The hidden blade was no longer a guaranteed kill. Instead, enemies had levels, meaning if your target was too strong, a stealth attack wouldn't be enough. The game rewarded open combat more than stealth, making assassinations feel secondary. Some missions forced combat encounters, removing the choice of silent takedowns. This was one of the most controversial aspects of Origins. While combat had improved, it came at the cost of the series' identity. Now, was Origins combat evolution a success? It was more engaging, skill-based combat system, varied weapons that encouraged different playstyles, smarter enemies and challenging boss fights, but some weapons felt unbalanced and clunky. Enemies relied too much on high health rather than smart AI. Stealth became less important, moving away from the series' roots. Origins set the stage for the future Assassin's Creed combat, but it also marked the moment where the series shifted away from being a stealth game into a full-fledged RPG territory.
The Pharaoh! I am Medjay to no Pharaoh. You see this? I can read my own name, Nat! We will find you. We will find you in your sleep! Sleep. I never sleep. I just wait in the shadows, and I will kill you all! Everyone who sniffed the air that day in Siwa!
A great protagonist can define an entire game. Ezio Auditore became a legend. Edward Kenway gave us one of the most beloved adventures in Assassin's Creed history. But what about Bayek of Siwa? For many, he was one of the most franchise's well-written characters, deeply emotional, yet somehow, his name isn't always remembered in the same breath as the series' biggest icons. Why? Was it because Origins was focused on the world building than personal storytelling? Or was it because he was overshadowed by RPG mechanics and the reinvention of the series? Or was it simply that Bayek's story, while powerful, didn't have the same cultural impact as Ezio or Altair? In this chapter, we're diving deep into Bayek's journey, his motivations, his role in the birth of the Assassin Brotherhood, and ultimately whether he deserved to be ranked among the best protagonists in the franchise. Was he a masterpiece of character writing, or just a stepping stone for what came after? At the heart of Bayek's story is a deeply personal tragedy. Unlike previous Assassin's Creed games protagonists who were driven by revenge, political upheaval, or personal ambition, Bayek's journey begins with the loss of his son, Kemi. This was a stark departure from past games. Ezio's story was about revenge, but his arc evolved into something bigger, his duty to the Brotherhood. Edward Kenway was motivated by fortune, only to discover a greater purpose. But Bayek, his story was rooted in grief. For the moment we meet him, Bayek is a shattered man by loss. His journey isn't just about avenging his son, it's about coming to terms with that loss, finding meaning beyond revenge, and ultimately building something greater than himself. This makes Bayek one of the most emotional, compelling protagonists in the series. His pain is raw, his anger is justified, and unlike other protagonists, his motivations feel deeply human, rather than purely tied to the Assassin's Creed mythology. But does that make him one of the best, or does that limit him to just one defining trait? Now, one of the most unique aspects of Bayek's character is that he isn't just a warrior or an assassin, he's a Magi. In ancient Egypt, the Magi was protectors of the people, guardians of order who defended villages from bandits, soldiers and corrupt rulers. This makes Bayek fundamentally different from the other Assassin's Creed protagonists. Ezio was a nobleman turned assassin. Edward was a pirate who stumbled into the Brotherhood. Arno and Shay had personal vendettas driving them forward. But Bayek, he was already a hero. Before his journey even began, his duty wasn't just about revenge, it was to the people of Egypt. This was one of Origin's greatest strengths. Bayek's deep connection to the world around him. He isn't just an assassin lurking in the shadows, he's a protector, a friend, a leader. However, this also presents one of the biggest criticisms of Bayek's story. While his role as Magi makes him feel grounded and noble, it also means he doesn't have the same strong ties to the Assassin Brotherhood that other protagonists do. For some, this makes Bayek feel less like an Assassin's Creed protagonist and more like an historical hero who just happened to be part of the story. Did this make the character weaker? Not necessarily, but it did make his connection to the larger Assassin's Creed lore feel less significant. One of the most defining aspects of Bayek's journey is his relationship with his wife, Aya, his closest ally and eventually the co-founder of the Assassin Brotherhood. Their relationship starts as one built by shared grief and a common mission. Together they hunt down the ones responsible for their son's death, using their skills to take out high-profile targets. But as their mission continues, a rift begins to form. His wife isn't just focused on vengeance, she sees the bigger picture. She understands that their actions are leading to something greater, a movement that will outlast them both. Bayek, however, is still driven by his personal loss. He's a protector, not a revolutionary. He cares about the justice for his people, but he doesn't yet see the need for an organised Assassin Brotherhood. This ideological divide is what ultimately tears them apart. Aya moves to Rome, dedicating herself to the assassin cause, while Bayek stays in Egypt. This is one of the most powerful and heartbreaking moments in the Origins. Unlike other AC protagonists, who often end their journeys with a sense of victory or purpose, Bayek's story ends with a quiet, personal loss. It's a bittersweet moment, but it also makes him one of the most human characters in the series. Now, one of the biggest surprises in Origins is that Bayek never actually calls himself an assassin. He lays the foundation down for the Brotherhood, creating the Hidden Ones, establishing their ideals and passing on his knowledge. But unlike Altair, Ezio or Connor, he never truly becomes the leader of the Order. Instead, that role falls to his wife, Aya, who takes on the name Anyanet and expands the Brotherhood beyond Egypt. For some fans, this was a letdown. They expected Bayek to be the definitive founder of the Assassins, the one to shape its ideology and mission, but instead he was more of a catalyst than a leader. But in many ways this makes his story even more powerful. Bayek wasn't in it for the glory, the power. He was simply a man who fought for justice, and in doing so, inspired something far greater than himself. Is Bayek one of the best? A deeply emotional, well-written character with human motivations, a protagonist who felt connected to the people of Egypt, not just the Assassin Brotherhood. A mature, tragic love story that added depth to his journey. But the critiques are his legacy in the Brotherhood feels less significant than the other protagonists, often overshadowed by the open-world RPG mechanics, lacks the same cultural impact as Ezio or Edward Kenway. So where does Bayek rank among the Assassin's Creed protagonists? He might not have iconic status of Ezio, but in terms of pure character writing, emotional depth and human storytelling, he's easily one of the most strongest protagonists in the series. When AC Origins launched in 2017, it wasn't just another entry in the series, it was a complete reinvention. It broke away from the traditional Assassin's Creed formula, introducing RPG mechanics, a fast open world, and a deeper combat system. It was a bold experiment and one that shaped the future of the franchise. But now, 8 years later, how does it hold up? Is it still a masterpiece that fans once praised? Or has it been overshadowed by its successors? Did it truly redefine Assassin's Creed for the better? Or did it mark the beginning of an identity crisis for the series? In this chapter, we'll examine what Origins did best, where it struggled, and whether it still deserves to be called one of the greatest Assassin's Creed games ever made. Now, what Origins did right: a stunning world, immersive, open world. Origins' recreation of ancient Egypt remains breathtaking. Even years later, few games have captured the historic beauty and authenticity. From the towering pyramids of Giza to the dense streets of Memphis, the world feels alive and immersive. The game's Discovery Tour mode, which allows players to explore without combat, is a testament to how well researched and detailed this world is. Ubisoft didn't just create a game, they built an historical experience that still holds up today. A strong, emotional story. Bayek's journey is one of the most emotional stories in Assassin's Creed history. His motivations aren't tied to politics or power, they're rooted in loss and duty. Unlike many protagonists in the series, Bayek feels deeply human. His relationship to his wife, the tragic loss of Kemet, and his role in the birth of the Hidden Ones all make for a compelling narrative that remains one of the best in the franchise. The combat and RPG evolution. While controversial, Origins' combat overhaul was necessary. The hitbox-based system expanded weapon variety, and enemy AI improvements added a new level of challenge and depth. It wasn't perfect, some weapons felt unbalanced, and stealth took a hit, but it was a step in the right direction. Without Origins, we wouldn't have more refined combat seen in Valhalla and in Odyssey. Now, where Origins struggled. The Assassin's Creed Identity Crisis. Origins was the moment when Assassin's Creed truly became an RPG. While this brought new depth to combat and progression, It also meant stealth was no longer the core focus. The hidden blade was no longer a guaranteed kill. Gear progression meant the stats mattered more than skill. Many missions favoured open combat over silent assassinations. For long-time fans, this shift was jarring. While the RPG mechanics added longevity, they also moved the series further away from its stealth-based roots. A huge world, but not always a meaningful one. Origin's world is massive and visually stunning, but at times it feels empty. The sheer scale of the map meant that some areas lacked depth, with copy-paste enemy camps and repetitive side content. Where the main story was engaging, some side quests felt like padding rather than a meaningful addition to the world. Now, final verdict, does Origin still hold up? Yes, it's still one of the most visually stunning and historical immersive games ever made. Bayek's story remains one of the most emotional, compelling in the franchise. The combat overhaul was a necessary step forward, but it also marked a shift away from stealth, which divided a lot of fans. Its RPG mechanics, while deep, sometimes worked against the core identity of the series. Its massive open world, while beautiful, sometimes felt repetitive. So is Assassin's Creed Origins still a masterpiece? For many, yes. It was a bold reinvention that redefined that the series could be. It gave us a rich, unforgettable world, a protagonist worth remembering, and a combat system that added depth. But it also signalled a major shift in Assassin's Creed identity, one that some fans embraced while others still debate to this day. And that concludes our look at Assassin's Creed Origins 8 years later. What do you think? Is it still one of the greats? Or has it been surpassed by its successors? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this video.